Hi. Can you guys hear me okay? Which is how every meeting is beginning in the new age. Every meeting begins with, can you hear me okay? How's everything going?
It's
Good?
miserably hot today.
Is it miserably hot? Let me see. What is it right here? It is, well, according to my watch, which is supposed to know, it's 84 degrees where I am, but the humidity is pretty low. So it's not as bad as, I'm usually in Florida. 84 degrees in Florida would be, you want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm in Colorado right now, so low humidity and not quite as bad.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. You know how many people we're expecting today?
No idea.
Okay.
I've been sending out reminders for the past hour, so.
Okay,
I
good.
sent
Good.
reminders or the whole invite thing day before yesterday and then or last night. And
Okay, cool.
I told them all about it, and then I sent out the link last night. So.
Well, that's okay. I'm happy with just a few people or a bunch. Either way, it's worth doing, and I can definitely send you the link to the video so that you can then take it and do with it as you wish. Edit it to make me look silly or whatever you want to do.
Add a hat.
But that way, yeah, sure. But that way, at least if you've got certain questions or things that you wanted to make sure got addressed, whether people are here or not, we can talk about that stuff.
Well, I have to confess, I started having some pain, and so I kind of stopped running for a while.
Oh my!
But the last week we were in Montana and we did a bunch of hiking and walking and stuff. So I didn't do any running, but I did do lots of hiking and I had no pain. So yesterday I thought I would start running just a little bit again.
Okay, pain where?
Like, this is weird. Like, not my knees themselves, which normally hurt, but like at the top of the bone that goes into the knee, sort of. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure.
So, that was kind of weird. I mean, I normally have painful knees, so that was like a new spot for me. And it was almost like the bone was hurting, which I thought was very weird, but it's gone away now.
Yeah, good. Well, that is good. One of the things that you might do that would help alleviate that pain is to ice the knee. And the best way to do that is with an actual ice cube, or with you can take like a paper cup and fill it with water and freeze that. And then what's cool about that is then when it's frozen, you can tear away the top part of the cup, so you've still got something to hold on to. And you can really rub that into the knee, and that gets in there way better. Putting an ice pack on something doesn't really get the cold down into the area. So massaging it in using that paper cup with ice in it will make a difference and help it, that'll help alleviate some of that pain. And what I would recommend for most people is, if you've had pain, even if it's gone away just within the last couple of days, go ahead and ice it like that once or twice a day for a week. Just make it kind of your habit. If you're sitting in the evening watching, hopefully not news, hopefully it's not going to be sports, but watching a movie, getting caught up on something on Netflix or whatever, just kind of mindlessly sit there and ice that. Obviously put a towel under you because it's going to be dripping a lot of water, but that'll help for sure.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to answer this phone call just in case it's one of our people, but I don't know.
You got it. No problem. Says Hannah and Barb say in the chat they're going to watch, but they don't have audio or video turned on. So, but I guess they can hear us. They just don't want to say anything and they don't want to be seen, which is fine. If you folks have got questions that you want us to talk about or concerns or anything else, go ahead and type them into the chat. And that'll keep me from talking about nothing in particular.
Oh, you just keep talking. That's great.
So today's been an interesting day in running. Disappointing day for a lot of people. Today, the Berlin Marathon canceled, the New York City Marathon canceled, the Marine Corps Marathon, which had already canceled or made virtual the 5K or the 10K rather. They did a they had tried to get a lot of people to defer the marathon, and then today they announced that while they're still going to have the marathon, normally you have to maintain a 14-minute per mile pace in that race, but for this year it's going to be 12-minute per mile pace. So someone told me, and I don't know if he had looked up the numbers or if he was exaggerating, but somebody told me today that that would eliminate about half of the field for the race by making it 12-minute pace, and that could be accurate. That could be accurate. So so that's what's happened in running today, sadly. You know, we're all just having to roll with the punches. Lots of people have had races that have gone virtual instead of in person, and one of the challenges is to maintain enthusiasm for running when you can't go and actually run a race. And that can be tough. That can be tough. But fortunately, with Zoom or conference calls or Google Meet or all of the different technologies that we have, we're able to get together with people that have similar goals and on a similar schedule. And so we're able to kind of share the experience that way. And one of the benefits is it means that we're not just restricted to the people in our local area as our training partners. So I've been encouraging people to reach out to their friends that live far away and have them be a part of their local Zoom calls. If they've got a group that's getting together, you know, for the people they would normally be training with in person, I've been encouraging them, hey, include people that used to run with you but have moved away, or people that you know have started exercising more now that they're not commuting to work, and hopefully that's making a difference. The mental health side of this, I think, is going to be one of the longest lasting negative aspects of the whole lockdown. And the more we can do to stay connected, the more we can ward off those negative mental health aspects. So, but think about that. I know, especially like you said, there were people that were invited to be a part of this today that haven't shown up. I know you reached out to them and invited them, but you know, ping them again and remind the people that did reply to, you know, even if they had a conflict, remind them, hey, check up on your friends and neighbors and make sure that they're getting out and exercising and that they are okay, because, you know, the mental health side is a serious, and that's what we use. A lot of us, running is how we combat our demons. And so we can still run, we can still get out and exercise, or we can still get on treadmills and things like that. It's just harder to do it in groups right now.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the weirdest things with the whole deal, that, you know, when we planned all this, it was going to be real and in person. And, you know, so we really have never even seen some of the people that are doing. I mean, some of us know some of them personally, and, you know, we have like anecdotal evidence or talking amongst each other about how it's going. But, and then the 4th of July race we were going to tie in with, of course, that's gone all virtual. And then, so we have to decide, and Amy's come up with a plan for how we can do like a social distance 5K to finally complete this thing. But it's, you know, it's just been completely different than we would ever have imagined it being. And having it be our first time ever trying to do something like this has been a little strange too.
Well, the good news is, if this is your first time through it, it's going to be so much easier next time. You know, it's going to be so much easier. And the celebration when everybody is able to get together, and when it's safe to hug and high five and all of those things, the celebration is going to be tremendous. It's just we're just not ready for it yet. So what challenges have you had, or what experiences have you had that have been interesting, or that I can, is there any way that I can help?
Well, one thing for me is, like, I mean, I used to run like a long time ago, like, 30 years ago. And I just had decided that I couldn't run anymore, that my knees didn't like it and my feet didn't like it. And it was just I was just never going to be a runner. And I would get this hamstring pull every time I tried to run. And I don't know why, but never once in the last 30 years had it occurred to me to only run a little while, to just run 15 seconds and walk. I mean, it seems very obvious, but so that's been really phenomenal. And that you don't have to have this big long stride, which every time I would try running again, I would, take off like I was 15 again, or 20. And, you can't do that, because that's not how it works. So that's been really fun for me to see that I actually can run. And my knee that previously was swollen quite often has actually not been swollen. So that's kind of
that is fantastic. And you're exactly right. It's not obvious. You said it should have been obvious, but no, I mean, we don't celebrate, our society doesn't celebrate the run walk method, really. We see it if you go to a big race, you see it all the time. But if you're sitting at home and you're watching, an Olympic race, or you're watching New York City Marathon or the Boston Marathon, you don't see those people taking walk breaks. And so you don't think that that's what you're supposed to do. And it's very easy for us to feel like, well, if we can't run the whole time, we're not real runners. And number one, of course, that's not true, because anybody that gets out there and does any amount of jogging at all is a runner. And two, this method can actually be used by fast people. We just don't see it that way all that much. But one place where you will see it, and I'd encourage you, I'm not sure if it's out there on YouTube or not, but I remember watching the Ironman World Championship that was several years ago when Jan Frodeno won. It was the first, he won it 2 or 3 times, but the first time that he won, I remember watching that coverage on television, and he was taking walk breaks at every water stop, which is at every mile in that race. And I was jumping up and down. I was so excited, because he's one of us. He's one of us. He's taking walk breaks, and he's winning the race. And he did. He won the world championship. And afterwards, in interviews, they asked him about the walk breaks, and he said, that was my plan from the beginning. That was my plan, was to take a walk break at every mile mark. And it was so exciting to see that. And we just don't see it very often. So it's not your fault that you didn't think about it. What's great is that Jeff Galloway popularized this method. He gave us permission to take these walk breaks. And then, not only has it helped people that never thought that they could run a 5K or a 10K or whatever, it's helped those people accomplish that goal, but then it has also extended the running lives of so many people. I have a good friend who had run a couple of marathons back in the 80s, and they hurt a lot the way that he did them, and he didn't want to do them anymore, and he stopped. And then I moved back to town. I'd known him when I was young, and I moved back to town, and I was doing marathons, and I was doing them this way, and he got interested. And so he tried it, and he had only done maybe 3 marathons back in the 80s and thought he was done. And then he started up again probably in 2004, 2005. He started doing marathons again using Run Walk. And I'll bet he's done 40 marathons since then. And I think he turned 70 this year. and he's still going strong. And just because this method has extended his life, and that's so good, because that's part of his identity, is that he's a runner. And the fact that this method allows us to keep doing it later and later in life means we don't have to give up on that part of who we are, what matters to us. So yeah, so I'm really glad that you found it. I'm really glad that you're using it and that it's working for you. And thank you so much for spreading the word to other people. That's the best part, is that you're not keeping it as a secret to yourself.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun, and I forgot what else I was going to say. This thing keeps chewing on my feet, so that's why I put her on my lap.
I got.
She's 5 months old.
Oh.
I forgot what I was going to say. It'll come back
Sorry.
to me. No, that's quite all right. It was running related though.
Not puppy.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that I had a really bad exacerbation of my asthma last fall, and so I'm still kind of struggling with that, and Run Walk has helped a lot. Like,
Good.
so
Good.
at least I can
I
still
know.
walk.
Yeah, I know right now, I mean, because of the way this virus manifests in people's lungs, you know, I know that a lot of people that have asthma are nervous right now about being in public, about going out and doing things. What we know in terms of the little bit of, there's not a lot of research on running right now in this time. But there are some good expert opinions that is based on the evidence that they have. And so what we think we know is that it is not spread very easily outside. And so if you are running, especially if you're running by yourself outside, you're fine. You're fine. You're not, if you're out running on a trail, or you're out running in the early morning and there's nobody else out there, you are fine. There's no way for you to catch it in those circumstances. If you are running with other people, if you've got a training partner or somebody else, what we're recommending, and what is kind of the best information that we have, is that when you're gathering beforehand, have a mask or some type of face covering, and stay 6 feet apart while you're standing around getting your shoes tied or whatever. But then once you start running, if you can run basically side by side, but 6 feet apart, you're good. You don't have to have the mask on under those circumstances. If you have a larger group, or if you have to run, if you're forced to run single file, then what the recommendation they're saying, think double D, double the distance and don't draft. So instead of being 6 feet apart, if you have to run in single file, stay 12 feet behind the person ahead of you, and try not to run directly behind them. So try to be more of a diagonal. And actually, if you're at a diagonal, 6 feet is probably good enough. 6 to 8. In fact, what the Roadrunners Club of America, their guidelines say 8 feet, kind of splitting the difference more or less between the 6 and the 12. But they say 8 feet to be if you're going to be on a diagonal. And so they've even got this chart that shows 2 columns of runners, but basically 6 feet diagonal, going down the columns, and that'll work. And that under those circumstances, you probably don't need a face covering, but they still say you should carry it with you during the group run, so that if you encounter other people out there coming toward you, you're going to make them feel more comfortable. If you go ahead and put a mask up, you're going to make them, mask or a buff or a bandana or something, you're going to make them feel more comfortable, showing that you're considerate. And then also, if something were to happen, and let's say you had to go into a convenience store to use the restroom, or to buy a Gatorade or something, or if someone fell and got hurt, you'd all have face coverings, so that if you have to get within that 6 foot barrier of somebody, you've got a way to cover up. So those are the guidelines. They're not saying not to run in groups. In fact, they're saying in most parts of the country it's safe to do, but just have a face covering with you, and try to stay 6 feet apart. But the nice thing is it's really hard to catch outside. In fact, one expert opinion that I read was said that you basically have to run directly behind somebody for 5 minutes to accumulate somebody who was infected to accumulate enough of the virus to catch it. So if you're not doing that, if you're not staying right behind somebody, you're probably okay. And there again, that's where the mental health benefit of running with a friend probably outweighs the low risk of catching it outside. Now, if you're running in a gym on a treadmill and there's somebody next to you on the next treadmill who's coughing and sneezing, get the heck out of there. That's a different story.
That sounds actually like a good plan for our 5K, when we do it. I kind of remember what I wanted to ask. So I read the PDF book that you sent, and I see that Jeff Galloway is not a big stretcher guy at all.
No.
And so do you adhere to that as well? And I mean, are there studies out there about stretching, not stretching?
Yeah. In fact, there are no studies that show that stretching prevents injury in distance runners. There are no studies that show that. And there are a great many studies that show that stretching can cause injury in distance runners. The only studies you're going to find that show a benefit to stretching are in sports that require either more explosive action, football, baseball, soccer, or for runners, shorter distance sprinters. For those types of runners, stretching, the flexibility you get from stretching is really, really important. If you don't stretch, will you be less flexible? Yep, you sure will. But is being less flexible a problem for distance runners? It isn't. It just isn't. So what Jeff will say is, if you have an injury and an expert, a physical therapist, doctor, nurse, somebody who knows you, knows your body, knows that injury, if that expert has said, here is a stretch that you should do that specifically addresses that injury, then do that stretch when they tell you to do it, for as long as they tell you to do it. But there is no across the board protocol of stretching that will help you as a runner, and it's far more likely to hurt you. So he's really looked into this. This is not just Jeff deciding he doesn't want to stretch, and so he tells people not to stretch. He's got the evidence to back it up. So that's, and the background on this, the background on why would runners stretch? If you look at the first running boom back in the 70s, high school and college cross-country coaches were typically not trained for distance runners. They were typically people whose fall sport was, either they were a fall sport football coach, and now they're coaching track in the spring as an additional, getting an additional stipend for that. Or they were spring sport baseball or soccer coaches who are getting that additional stipend to help coach the cross-country runners in the fall. So they were used to coaching sports where stretching was important. When you've got to come off the line and hit that next guy, or you've got to come off the line and run down the field to catch the ball, or you've got to sprint and hurdle, or all those other things, for those sports, or you've got to run and cut and dodge in soccer, stretching is important. That type of flexibility is really important for those. And so those coaches just took the same type of warm-ups that they were using in those other sports and applied them to distance runners, to the 5K, 10K runners in cross country, or to the 1 mile, 2 mile runners in track. But there was no evidence that it was supposed to help those runners. It's just, that's what they did. And so as time has gone on and more research has been done on those sports, and there are more coaches that are specifically distance running coaches, and they're not just doing that as a sideline for their other sport, stretching has fallen aside. And there are fewer and fewer coaches that are coaching runners that recommend stretching.
Well, it does make it easier.
Stretching. I love that.
I know you love that, Amy, and it does actually make it easier to get out the door and go for a run, because all you got to do is walk for a while and then
Yep. As Jeff says, I exonerate you. I release you from any feeling of guilt that you haven't been stretching. You don't have to do it.
Amy, the inflexible, celebrates.
Yeah, I get it. I did yoga for a number of years, and I was still never able to touch my toes after doing years of yoga, and I stopped. I just stopped doing it. You know, I wasn't getting the peace of mind from yoga that I could get from a long run, and you know, as my running increased, I kind of stopped doing those other things. Which is not to say, I'm not telling people don't do yoga. If that's important to you, if you get something positive out of that, that's great. But be aware that stretching can cause injury in distance runners. And Jeff, if Jeff were here, he would tell you stop doing yoga. He would straight out tell you that. Yeah, Mary, I think if you are getting, I said earlier, there's that mental health benefit that we can't ignore that's very important with runners. And I acknowledge that yoga and meditation are really linked, and that for a lot of people there is a good link to, you know, that yoga brings them, increases their mental health. And I get that. I also get there's a social aspect of that, which be careful of that right now. I would say avoid hot yoga with your friends. Let's cut that out right now. But if yoga is an important part of your life, you know, still do that, but just be cautious. You know, if you are running and you notice that something feels a little tight, don't stop and do a position during your run, or don't try to do yoga immediately after you run or immediately before you run. Keep those things separate. Keep those things separate, and just be cautious. Just listen to your body carefully. Pretty dog. I'm enjoying looking at the dog.
She's very interested in any and all video meetings.
Yep. Hannah says they have to log out now, and then says Thanksgiving. I wonder if that was an auto correct from Thanksgiving, or if they're celebrating it now. Why not? It'd be great. Wouldn't it be great if we could just fast forward to the end of November and the world's got to be in a better place by then, right? Got to be.
I hope so. I mean, I hope we're not in like wave 4 by then.
Zip it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I don't want it to be, Amy. I don't.
So is the library open, or are you guys still doing, still just checking things out online?
We are doing curbside and like concierge services, and then July 6th we open up in small numbers to the public. So. Great.
And the bookmobile is the bookmobile still going out and doing window deliveries? Is that right, Amy?
Yeah. Yep. We're like a mobile food truck for books.
Awesome. We don't have a bookmobile in our area anymore. We used to. When I was a kid, we did, but we don't now. And I walk past. I'm out in Colorado right now, but when I'm back home in Florida, I walk past our library every day, run past it, and I look over longingly, waiting for it to reopen. We had a program. What I love how I've told you this before. I love how involved libraries get with the community. I love that it's not just checking out a book, and it's not just the Dewey Decimal System. It's there's a lot of value that comes from the library. Our local library had a storytellers night that we were supposed to do, and I was on the poster. They did a poster with all the storytellers on there, and I was going to be one of the storytellers, and that was actually going to be at a we were going to have it at a what's the right word for it, a home of some sort. I forget what's the appropriate name for it. An old folks home is not the appropriate name for it, but that's kind of what it is. And
assisted living.
That's the one, assisted living. Thank you. So it was going to be a nice, really nice one of those, though. But that got nixed, which is good. They need to lock down that place and keep those people safe. But I kind of wish they had, just like the running programs are going virtual, I really wish they had decided to do the storytelling virtually, because there's no reason why we couldn't have the storytellers could have sat at our homes and told our story. It would have been fun, would have been something to do and something for people to watch, but not so much now. But I admire, I rely heavily on our local library and have done a bunch of programs with them, and look forward to doing that again. So I'm really glad that you guys are doing this. It's a great service to your community. And I'm glad to hear you said earlier for our first time doing this. So that implies that it's going to keep going. And so we definitely want to keep helping you guys out. And if you have any questions or any issues come up, you need anything, let me know, please.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions or concerns? Anything you want your folks to hear?
Don't give up.
That's a good one.
Don't give up. I will say, if you want a little bit more inspiration, if you want a little bit more of a sense of where things are with running, Jeff Galloway is doing another town hall. He's decided to do a free YouTube town hall once a month now. And so it's going to be on the last Saturday of each month. So he's got one coming up this Saturday. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern, which I guess makes it noon for you guys. And that's on Jeff Galloway's YouTube channel. And he is going to be, I think he's told everybody, he's decided he wants to have a special guest each month. So you could go and watch last month. The special guest was Amby Burfoot. Amby was Jeff's college roommate, but Amby also, back in that day and age, Amby won the Boston Marathon. And then he was, for many, many years, the editor-in-chief of Runner's World magazine. And so it was neat to have Amby on the town hall last month. This month, Jeff is going to be interviewing a doctor in Atlanta. Jeff's based in Atlanta, and he has a doctor coming on who is I believe her field is, I think she's an orthopedic surgeon, but she's going to be talking about running and talking about the state of medicine now. I don't think it's going to be a heavy COVID thing. I think it's going to be more talking about how running helps our bodies. So I think it's going to be it's intended to be an uplifting and positive thing. And so that's, again, will be noon Central this Saturday on Jeff's YouTube channel. So hopefully people will hear about that and tune in and watch it. And if they can't watch it, if you watch it live, and if you have questions, you can type in your questions during the chat, and Jeff's son, Brennan, will be monitoring that chat and feeding those questions to Jeff, and to a moderator who will be helping with the discussion. So should be fun. I can get you the link to that so you can send that out. So cool.
All right. Well,
anything else I can help with?
I think that's it for me, I guess. Amy, okay. How are you doing? Good
deal. All right. Well,
hey, my mom is here too, and she said thanks.
Oh, you didn't want to be on screen? Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome. Is Mom a runner?
She's a walker.
Okay, that's awesome. My parents were walkers. My mother is now more a walker than a runner, but they were both walkers, and then they started participating as walkers in the Donna half marathon, which is a half marathon in Jacksonville, Florida, that raises money for breast cancer research. And my dad kind of got into it, and they started doing a little bit of run walk, because they saw that in some cases the walkers were faster than the run walkers, in some cases the other way around. So my dad wanted to get a little faster, so he started with just doing 10 seconds of running, and moved on up. And now my dad, he did his first marathon when he was 70, and he's now 76 and has done maybe 10 marathons by now. So so it's never too late to become a runner, and the run walk method is definitely the best way to do it. I will say, actually, here's just a quick story. I was over in Athens, Greece. I was helping with a tour group that was over there to run the Athens Marathon, and there was a guy there who was there just as a companion. He wasn't there to run, but his girlfriend was running, and he was a walker, and he heard me give a talk a couple days before the race, talking about using walk breaks to help feel better and go faster and all those other things, recover faster from the run. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, well, I didn't think I could do this marathon because I didn't think I could be fast enough just walking. But do you think I could, if walk breaks help with runners, could run breaks help with walkers? And this was several years ago. There had been a volcanic eruption somewhere in Europe and Iceland or someplace. And so a lot of travel was disrupted. A lot of air travel was disrupted. And so we had extra bibs for this marathon. And so he said, if you think I could put run breaks in and could go fast enough to finish this race, I want to buy one of those bibs. I want to take one of those spots. So we talked about it and he did it. And so he would do 15 seconds of running, just a quick 15-second jog, and then 45 seconds of walking. So he was splitting the minute, doing run, walk, run, walk. And oh my gosh, what was cool is the race had video clips at the halfway point and at the finish line. And you could see him at the beginning. He was going really conservatively and he was way toward the back. And then we watched the video clip of him at the finish line, and he's jogging across the finish line. He took off his hat and threw it up in the air. He was so proud of himself. He had never gone that far before. He had never used the run walk method. But because he was inserting those little tiny run breaks into the walking, it made a difference and it helped him out. Jeff does have a walking book, a book that is for walkers. He doesn't necessarily try to convert them to using run breaks, but he does have an exercise in there called shuffle breaks, where you just do a shuffle, still walking, but do a shuffle for 10 seconds or so. And by inserting those little shuffle breaks, it can keep your body from being as sore after a long walk as it would be if you walked the same way the whole time. So he's all about helping people feel better. So my quick little, I'm not trying to convert mom to a marathoner or to a runner, but there's a little tip. And it's a good book if you want to pick that up. Cool deal.
Right,
she could get the book. She could get the book, she could read it, and then she could donate it to the library so that they could then check it out to other people.
There you go.
All right. Thanks so much, ladies. I will send you this recording so that you can take it, edit it if you want to, and use it as you wish. And when I send it over, I'll also include the link to Jeff's town hall so that people can watch that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much. You're welcome. You're welcome. Anytime.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.